So back in the 1320s BCE, the 10th ruler of the 18th dynasty, his name was Akhenaten. He ruled alongside his wife Nefertiti. In the circles I run in, Nefertiti is one of the most beloved, strong, powerful, and unparalleled, exquisite beauties of all time. But back then, that was not the case. Okay, so see, Akhenaten and Nefertiti tried to change the religion. Now, previously, for the 17 and a half dynasties that came before them, it was, the religion was, they believed in many gods. It was a polytheist religion. And they had tried to change it to the worship of one god, the god of Ra. Even went so far that they had it commissioned that pictograms and imagery of other gods, or gods other than Ra, be painted over or chiseled out, or in other words, completely eradicated, all for the worship of the one true god, Amun-Ra. Now, as you can imagine, this created an incredible amount of political unrest. They were so hated, in fact, that later dynasties and later people would refer to them as the enemy or the criminals. There are depictions of Nefertiti where her nose has been chiseled out, and this is believed to be an attempt to deny her entry into the afterlife. Anck Su Namun. What a beautiful name. Now, I know I'm not saying it right. I am torturing this name, and it breaks my heart because I, too, have parents that gave me a name that nobody can pronounce. Genevieve. Gen of Eve. I feel like if they're going to give me a name that nobody can pronounce, they can at least make it something beautiful like Anck Su Namun. So Anck Su Namun means life through Amun. Life through Amun-Ra, like the religion. I mean, it's never been uncommon to name children after religious figures or religious beliefs. I mean, David, Mark, John. I just named half of the people I knew growing up, right? Now, you may recognize her name from the Mummy franchise. Brendan Fraser. But it's important to remember that these movies are fiction. They're not even fan fiction. It's like fantasy fiction. I love fantasy fiction. I write fantasy fiction. For example, Anck Su Namun died 60-ish years before Seti was even born. There was certainly no bizarre love triangle between Imhotep, Anck Su and Seti. They didn't know each other. Now, Anck Su Namun was fairly young when her mother Nefertiti died. And after her passing, her father Akhenaten attempted to procreate with her two older sisters. And when that was not viable, he instead chose to take his daughter Anck Su Namun as his bride. She was no more than 10. It wasn't long after that Akhenaten also passed away. And his son, Anck Su Namun's half-brother, Tutankhamun, came into power. He was approximately 9-ish years old when he ascended to the throne and took Anck Su Namun's hand in marriage. She would have been no more than 12. Now, all pharaohs have a council of advisors, but being so young, the boy king and his child bride, their advisors would have taken on a caregiver role, parental role, if you will, and were highly influential in the decisions that were made. They did, in fact, reinstate the old religion. Now, Tutankhamun, throughout his entire life, had a series of physical ailments and illnesses. It was said that he was never even able to walk without a cane, possibly from generational inbreeding, which is not uncommon in families of power throughout any era or any region, families keep it within the family in order to maintain that power. But one of the highest advisors, the highest ranking advisors, like a commander, if you will, his name was I. Now, I knew that if Tutankhamun was unable to produce an heir, that he would be the next in line to ascend to power. Now, Tutankhamun and Anck Su Namun did try to produce an heir. It resulted in 2 separate pregnancies. One miscarried at approximately 5 months of gestation, and the other was stillborn at approximately 8 months, and is said to have had many of the physical ailments that her father did. So Tutankhamun passed at the age of 19 years old, and there are theories as to why he passed. And one is that he possibly injured his head in a chariot ride. Now, why would a physically frail young man, hardly able to walk without a cane, be on a chariot ride? Unless maybe one of his advisors, someone he knew and trusted, had encouraged him to do so, perhaps to gain favor with the people. Perhaps that chariot was manipulated to not function properly.
I went over here for a reason. I wanted to.
That's the stuff fantasy fiction's written about, isn't it? It could have been that he became septic from an abscessed tooth, or that he simply succumbed to his illnesses. Anyway, he died at the age of 19. And his passing left Anck Su Namun absolutely terrible.
So much so that she wrote a letter to the Hittite king, stating, pleading, begging, I've lost my husband and I have no heirs. You have so many sons, please send me one to wed. I am terrified. I am afraid.
So the Hittite king, he's like, what the? Are you for real right now? Like, this has literally never happened in history. So he responded in kind by sending a son to wed Anck Su. But the son, the Hittite prince, found himself unalived before he could make it to Egypt. And I ascended to the rank of pharaoh, where he promptly took Anck Su Namun's hand in marriage. And she became the 3rd wife, the 2nd principal wife to a pharaoh. Terrified. She was no more than 21. Around this time that her name falls out of the historical record. What we do know is that she was laid to rest in a tomb not far from Tutankhamun's with the mummiforms of the 2 fetuses she was unable to carry to term. I don't know why or how or when she passed, but there's no evidence that scorpions had anything to do with it. This tomb would be later pilfered and decimated beyond recognition. Despite being married to 3 pharaohs in a row, 2 of them as principal wives, her name does not appear in Tutankhamun's tomb, nor does it appear in I's tomb. And that is the sad and tragic story of Anck Su Namun. I truly hope that her spirit was able to find peace and comfort in the River of Reeds. So if you are into history, mythology, folklore, or fantasy fiction, give your girl a follow. I am here for you. Remember, you are valid, you are worthy, and you are loved. See you next time. Bye.